Carrie Ann Smith is an associate professor in the Department of English here at Queensborough Community College. She's the inaugural faculty fellow for diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. A founding member of the Black Faculty and Staff Association, Dr. Smith served on the Faculty Diversity Committee and now serves on CUNY's Diversity Incubator. Dr. Smith often features in local media and was a recipient of Caribbean Life's 40 Under 40 Award. She is a contributor to Teaching Race in Perilous Times, which comes out from SUNY Press this year. And that book highlights the challenges of teaching race in the United States today. So, Carrie Ann, welcome to the conversation. It's nice to have you.
Thank you, Michael.
Carrie Ann, I want to talk a little bit about your journey to Queensborough.
So I'm a New Yorker. I did go to school in Brooklyn. I grew up in Queens Village, down the road from Van Buren High School. And then I went back to Brooklyn and taught. Anyway, I went to Binghamton for undergrad, came back, was a New York City teaching fellow. And I taught at my alma mater for 4 years and decided, okay, I need to go back to school because the real reason, and the reason why I'm telling this story is because the real reason I went back for a doctorate, because I was quite fine being a teacher because I loved my job, was because all the textbooks that I used, they just never seemed to have my students in them. And the experiences that they spoke to just never spoke to the children I was teaching. And I just thought, what if I wrote these things and wrote about my students? What a difference it would make. And I had done a program, like it was a 2-week teaching program on media and American democracy at the Kennedy School of Government. And they encourage teachers a lot to do a lot of research and go into the, into the field and do some of the writing. And so that was the impetus for me going back to school. So that's where it began. It began at Clara Barton High School, where I attended for 4 years and then went back immediately after college to teach. So it was like high school twice. It was so much fun. And so then I went to Brooklyn College, so I'm a CUNY grad. And then I again decided to go back to graduate school. So I was in Binghamton for a while doing my doctoral studies. And I moved to Arkansas. I got a job at Philander Smith College in Arkansas. And there's a long story behind why. But, I went to Philander Smith. I taught there for a year. It was a beautiful experience, truly. A lot of things happened. I learned a lot. It was my first time in the HBCU environment, and the community that was there, the things that they built, just the spirit of an HBCU was so appealing to me. And then, people are always looking for jobs. So I was scouring the internet. Well, it was time to come home anyway. And I saw some CUNY jobs. I actually applied to 2 departments at Queensborough. I won't say which 2. And and I saw a job at CUNY, and I talked to my cousin. She said, you know what? CUNY jobs don't come along very often, and so if you see one that you could qualify for, you really should apply. And then at the same time, there was a job coming up at Philander for a person to work in the social justice department that they had just created. And I wanted that job too. So it was kind of, both came up at the same time. I interviewed for both, got both, and then went into the office with the director of the social justice program. He said, if New York is calling, you should go home. And so that's how I ended up at Queensborough. Queensborough actually allowed me to come in from Arkansas to interview, and they also interviewed me remotely. And so that's why I'm here. That's how I got back here. It was all.
Arkansas itself must have been a big cultural shift from New York City.
From Binghamton. I was in Binghamton at that time. So, people, New Yorkers say this to me all the time. I'm like, yo, you have to go to Arkansas. Arkansas was my very first experience outside of Jamaica because I was born and raised in Jamaica. I went to high school there for 2 years, and then I moved to the States when I was 13. So, Arkansas is the first space I entered in America that was so Black. Mm. And people are always shocked when I say that. They're like, but it's Arkansas. I'm like, it's Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Historic, right? And I was at the center of the city in the first HBCU there. And I was down the street from Central High School. And if you're a Black history fanatic like I am, that's just heaven. And so I went to that museum several times. I was at the epicenter in Little Rock of Black culture on both sides, right? I was on the academic side, but if I went down the street, I was in the hood. And then if I went home, I was in the suburbs. And so I had a lot of great experiences there. But actually, Little Rock, Arkansas has way more Black people than New York City.
Tell me, your time there has, it sounds, greatly influenced what you're doing now, and you have a new role at Queensborough. Can you explain to us what you're doing here?
Yes, yes. And my work in graduate school too. I was in my program at Binghamton in the doctoral program. It was centered on social justice. So that's where this all came from. I want to give them credit for that. And so this work that I'm going to be doing now, it's a new role, new position. And the job of the faculty fellow is to provide advice, yes, in terms of how faculty members are situated on our campus. But I'll be doing a lot of work right now surrounding the curriculum and ensuring that our curriculum is anti-racist, inclusive, and is making room for all kinds of ideas, students, all kinds of writers and perspectives. That's my first charge. My second charge is to provide mentorship for junior faculty. So what we'll see rolling out is things like this happening and, highlighting the work of faculty, which I'm very excited to be working on with you, Michael. It's amazing. I'm happy about this. And then the second thing would be to provide programming, support. I'm hoping to partner with CEDL. I haven't asked them yet, but I hope so, to work with CEDL a little bit to provide some kind of resources. There's access to people who do this work, who train faculty. There are programs that we could roll out that could support junior faculty as they seek tenure and promotion even, it's the same road. And so that's my second charge. And my third charge is to work in concert with, the diversity programming of the entire college to provide academic type programs that center diversity and anti-racism.
You mentioned in a conversation we had offline a little while ago that really you want to modernize Queensborough to some extent. Can you elaborate on that for me, please?
It's not an accusation. I want to say that up front. When people watch this, I'm not accused. Well, I'm just highlighting. I'm not accusing Queensborough of being antiquated. I'm not. So I'm not insinuating that well, yes, I am. All right. So a lot of things around, CUNY was built on the concept of inclusion, right? CUNY's whole goal was to make sure that people would be included in the conversation, that we were making room for students who didn't have access before. What happened, right? Okay. Right. And now we have Queensborough. If we look at the stats, the faculty numbers, they're not terribly dismal compared to the national average. But compared to the number of students we have who are from diverse backgrounds, we could do some work. But I'm also thinking of the mentality. The idea that our students are not dynamic people who have things to offer is an antiquated concept. And I've heard it quite a bit at Queensborough. The idea that the professor knows all. Let's just say we're now in the virtual world. Yes. That has been tested quite a bit because our students are used to this stuff. They're on Clubhouse. They're on all these apps. They're on TikTok, being, TikTok sensations. And there's some of us who don't even know how to log into TikTok. Again, we have to modernize our mentality, our idea. Our students have brilliant ways that they go about marketing themselves. They have brilliant ways that they go about making money.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and then the idea of what college is supposed to look like, right? That's been tested a lot during this pandemic. But when I say modernize, I'm thinking of upgrading the way that we think so that we're actually matching what the world looks like, upgrading the way that we look so that we're moving forward in the way that the world is moving forward. Like we've had a Black president, we've had a Black VP now, we have a Black VP now. Things are different. We saw on January 6th, that antiquated mentality, every news media agency denounced that. Right. This is not who we are. That was a phrase that I kept hearing. This is not who we are. We're more modern now. That's old.
You talk about creating a new environment for the people that Queensborough serves to reflect our community more. Is that your top priority in this new role?
My top priority is, the truth is my top priority is making sure that the people who we bring here, I'm on the faculty side, but that rolls down to the students, that the people who we bring here are happy here, that they feel welcome, that the work that they do is meaningful to them, that the work that they feel like they are here to stay, and that they feel like when they come, this is where they belong. So my top priority in my mind is creating a space of belonging, acceptance, and understanding, because some people actually don't understand that concept that I just went through about modernizing and thinking in modern terms. So my top priority I would say would be to ensure that it's a warm, safe key environment for everyone, no matter their color, no, everyone, that everyone is happy here, as best as I can do to support that. That's what I hope to do.
Let's talk a little bit about the contribution you made to that new book. You mentioned earlier on in our talk about going to your high school and wanting to rewrite the books that your students were learning from. So you've taken a step, I guess, with this contribution. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So this is my second step, because Jennifer Malloy and I wrote a textbook called Writing Identities, a guide to reading through writing. And in there, we tackled all the issues that we were passionate about, like immigration and belonging. There's a whole chapter on belonging in there. So this will be my second attempt at that. And so this chapter actually speaks to my work at Queensborough. It was a service learning project that I did on Flint, Michigan, where my students were gathering information about the things that were happening in Flint, because it was current, again, culturally responsive. And so we put together a program for Earth Day. Earth Day was happening on our campus, and we did a lot of research surrounding the issue in Flint. They looked at newspaper articles, they looked at research, and they looked at videos, movies, all sorts of artifacts. And they came up with some ideas for how to solve the problem. I was so proud of them. And so that project is what this chapter is about. And then my colleague, Paul Buckley, Dr. Buckley, it was at Colorado College at the time. And he also was doing a project on Flint. So we kind of collaborated to reflect on the work that we did surrounding the crisis in Flint, Michigan.
Earlier, you mentioned the West Indian immigrant experience that you've had personally and the research that you've done. Can you tell me a little bit about that work?
Yeah, so my dissertation was about the experiences of first generation immigrants and first generation West Indian immigrants, the English speaking ones, in New York City schools. So I was still of the mindset, as a high school teacher. I looked at parent participation, right? Yeah. The idea of people looking at who's in front of them, understanding who they are. There's this concept that I've written as a myth, that parents don't participate. They don't show up. And I used to hear that a lot, even as a teacher. I heard this a lot the other day in a session that I did, that I volunteered to speak in. And I said to them, well, who are these parents? Who are they? What do you know about them? And so my dissertation kind of put the students and the parents in the same room. And I examined their experiences from the beginning, like where did they come from? Who are these people? And then how do they view parental involvement? What is it that they're calling involvement? And from that, I came up with two terms. My dissertation created the terms perfunctory involvement and precise involvement. That's what I gathered from the research that I was doing with these people, that they all thought they were participating. It's just how they participated. And schools did not account for the fact that participation looks different to different people. If your mom is working 3 jobs because she came from the Caribbean and dragged you here with her, trying to feed you, when you come home, if she says, let me see your book bag, she has 5 minutes to check that backpack to say, okay, you have this homework, that homework, that homework. I can't help you with it. Make sure it's done by 5 p.m. It's involvement.
Right.
It's perfunctory, but it's involvement. And if schools would start to, what I suggested in my dissertation research was that if we would start to look at the people and the work that they're actually putting in and see how we can use that how we can make that valuable, we'll make a few strides with these students. So for example, the student whose parent can only be a perfunctory participant can reach out to kinship networks. And if schools would allow room for kinship networks to participate, then they would get more results, right? So for example, maybe my mom, like I gave the example in there, like my parents couldn't show up on the first day of school. We didn't even know that was an American, we didn't know that was a thing. In Jamaica, you go to school. Nobody walks you to school, you go. It's up the street. And here, children, their parents walk them to school every day. The first day of school, not every day. The first day of school, I went and I was looking around. I was like, oh, there are parents here. Well, my dad left home at 6 a.m. He was a construction worker when I came to this country. And so my brother got to school and didn't know that he wasn't registered. Like, we didn't know the system. He wasn't registered, and he needed an adult with him to register. He was 16. So he went to Franklin Avenue because he went to Prospect Heights High School, found a homeless guy, paid him $5, and asked him to enroll him in school. Now, were my parents negligent? No, they didn't know.
Right.
Well, they had no idea. But that's what I mean. So that's what came out of that. And then also in that, I discussed the experiences of immigrants and the history and what all of that means in the grand scheme.
Well, you raised a big and important point here, and that's that a lot of, especially our students at Queensborough who come in, who are first generation students, and even if they're not, they don't know the system, right? So when they don't know the system, they can't navigate the system. They can't climb the system. They don't know what doors to open or where to look, which I think is a big part of where our organization has to go, and all community colleges.
Yeah. Providing access so that our students are not succeeding in spite of, they're succeeding because of us. Something as simple as putting come to office hours. What is that?
Right.
What is that? They have not. Where is that? What do you do there? So if we could make those things more accessible and just, if we look at certain things that are put in place to help students, there are a lot of words. And then we complain they don't read. Well, yeah, they don't. So now what? How do we meet them where they are? I think that's really, really crucial to helping them survive.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us, for helping us put the conversation series together. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Pleasure is all mine, Michael. Thank you so much for this work.